Ready to go?
Not quite. It's just buffering on YouTube. Okay, now you're ready.
All right. So call to order the special Finance Committee meeting for May 26, 2021. Over to you, City Clerk.
I'm going to read the meeting procedures. So the procedures adopted for this meeting meet or exceed the standards set forth in Governor Newsom's Order N-25-20, which allows public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. At this time, I will conduct roll and I'll ask the chair to recognize me afterward to confirm certain matters for the record. Vice Chair Perkins.
Here.
And Chair Safar.
Here.
Thank you.
And I recognize you again.
Thank you. Based on the responses to roll call, the record should reflect that all committee members can hear the proceedings clearly. And if there are no objections, the record will further reflect that each committee member believes, based on voice or facial recognition or otherwise, that the persons representing themselves to be committee members are in fact committee members. Thank you. No objection. Seeing no objection, Vice Chair Perkins.
No objection.
I will turn the meeting back over to the chair with a reminder that all votes must be taken by roll call.
Thank you. Number 2, public comment. Public comment at special meetings is limited to the item described in the notice. Comments should not exceed more than 3 minutes. Do we have any comments?
I did not receive any written comment for this meeting. However, we do have one person in the audience, and if they would like to raise their hand at this time and speak under public comment, they can do so.
I don't see anybody raising their hands, so I think we can close public comment. Item number 3, new business. 3.1, proposed fiscal year 2021-22 statement of investment policy, staff report by Kelly Sessions, Administrative Services Director. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. It's good to be here. This is my maiden voyage, so hopefully all will go well.
Oh, we'll be tough on you this time.
Well, this is quite a beginning here, because I'll just apologize up front by stating that this investment policy that we're going to review is about as technical and potentially therefore boring as it gets. So hopefully, but it's important that we all understand what it is doing. And so we'll try to take the appropriate time to make sure that we're all on board and understand what's being proposed. So next slide, please. As a result of the Orange County bankruptcy back in the early 90s, California Government Code was changed, Code Section 53646, to require cities to annually review and adopt their statement of investment policy. The first City of Santa Ramon Statement of Investment Policy was adopted in 1989, and then again, most recently reviewed and adopted last June for the current fiscal year. The city's investment advisor, who is FHN Financial Main Street, is proposing some changes to the 2021 investment policy, and we have included those changes in a red line version in the agenda packet for your review. And those changes are, again, small but important, so we want to make sure that we understand what they are. So next slide, please. The first change is to lower the credit rating required to purchase medium-term corporate notes. And, you know, we all basically understand what a personal credit score is. We know what our credit rating is when we go to take out a loan or something of that nature. Well, there are 3 nationwide credit agencies, 3 main agencies, Fitch, Standard & Poor's, and Moody's, that do those types of credit ratings, credit worthiness for organizations. And they each have their own rating system, so it can be a little bit difficult to understand. But the proposal here is that the city's current policy is more restrictive than what is required by state law. So the proposal is going to be to lower the city investment policy to the state law required level. And that is only when it comes to the medium-term corporate notes, purchase of medium-term corporate notes. So you'll notice the proposal is the current policy is AA- and AA3. You'll see that on under the investment grade category. To under very low credit risk is to reduce that rating down to A and A2, which is still in the medium low credit risk band. And that's for maturities that are less than 4 years. For other maturities that are in the 4 to 5 year band, the proposal is to reduce that required AAA rating down to AA- and AA3 for maturities that are from 4 to 5 years. Again, these are all investment grade maturities or investment grade ratings, and in the very low credit risk to low credit risk area. The purpose of this is because we're in such a low credit rate environment that the financial advisor is proposing, trying to come up with ways to propose that we could increase our yield without taking on a lot of unnecessary risk. And so at first I was feeling a little unsure about this, if I wanted to recommend this and bring it forward. But then I realized that a lot of the corporations that are in this lower credit risk category, John Deere, Caterpillar, Toyota, in my former city, I owned parts of all of those already. And so I realized that my previous policy was at this level. And then just for a security check, I did a little bit more research and found the investment policy for our municipal pooling authority, our insurance authority. And they have the same risk rating for their medium-term corporate notes. So I felt that that was a good reflection of what other local agencies are doing. And so we wouldn't be out there, you know, the only agency that was taking on additional risk. So the purpose here is this is none of these proposals are essential, but they are proposals that we need to feel comfortable with and feel that we understand what it is and why we're doing it. Next slide, please. So the next proposed change to the investment policy is in the money market funds. And the proposal is to change the maximum money market fund requirement from the city's more restrictive 10% policy max in any one money market fund to the state code requirement of 20%. So what is happening in this particular area is that at certain points in the time in the year, for instance, in December, there are large deposits that get made into the money market fund by a sweep account for overnight safekeeping. And from a technical standpoint, when those short-term investments are swept into this money market fund, it can put the city out of compliance with the policy of 10%. And so that puts the financial advisor in a position of having to go out immediately, very quickly, and buy something else just to stay within that policy limit. So this is very short-term issue. And again, the purpose is to make it easier for the investment advisor to manage and also make it easier to keep the city within our policy requirements. And then the third area of proposed change is in the weighted average maturity. And weighted average maturity is a measure of the composite length of time. We have a portfolio that has all kinds of investments in it, and they each have their own length of time before they mature. So the weighted average maturity is taking all of those composite averages and seeing how long they last. So the proposal is to increase from a weighted average maturity of 2 years to add another 6 months onto that to go to 2.5 years. And again, the financial advisor is proposing this as a way to increase some yield by not taking on a lot of additional risk. Next slide. So next steps, number one is there is no direct impact, fiscal impact to this. This is a policy change only, but eventually it could result in some higher returns. Of course, those higher returns come with taking on some additional risk. If the council or the committee approves this, then staff is asking that you forward the draft statement of investment policy to City Council for approval by resolution. With that, that's the end of this item. So do you have any questions that I could answer for you?
Vice Mayor.
There we go. I'm assuming that in your very professional opinion and experience that all of these are very prudent and do not put any of the city's assets, financial assets at risk, at undue risk. I mean, there is always risk unless it's strictly government bonds, which are AAA or better. But that is your professional opinion, and that this is a level of risk that is suitable for cities, and you recommend we do that.
I would say yes to all of that.
Okay. That's
So this
the only question I. Mhm.
All right. So this makes it a little bit riskier, but also advantage of gaining more if the market is doing well.
That is
in
correct.
terms of- okay.
I particularly appreciate the 10% to 20% and recognize that the when the county dumps the property tax dump, and of course there's other dumps that happen in December, that creates a cash problem for the investment advisor. If they don't have a suitable place to put it, then they are either going to violate the policy or they're going to rush to put money somewhere without maybe the level of diligence that they might otherwise have done.
Exactly. Yeah, that is the purpose for changing that particular portion of the policy.
And to me, that's the most important one of the three. The other two, we've been living with, those levels of bond ratings for a long time and have been reasonably successful. But if you think that those are prudent changes to make, then I would recommend that we forward this to council for further action, for approval.
I can second that.
Okay.
Do we need a vote or you have direction?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So on to item number 2, 3.2, agreement for investment advisory services. And staff report by Kelly Sessions.
Thank you again. Okay, so next slide, please. So we're here to talk about investment advisory services. And this is closely related to the previous item that we just discussed. The city maintains approximately $70 million in reserves and fund balances that are professionally managed by a third-party fiduciary. And we're under contract with that vendor. Again, it's FHN Financial Main Street Advisor, but that contract expires on June 30th of 2021. So we're trying to get ahead of that expiration date and move forward with another contract for the next 5-year period. So that's the purpose of us being here to discuss this item, is to review the staff proposal of vendor selection for an investment advisor, and then approve the recommendation for forwarding to City Council for consideration. Next
Kelly, if
slide.
I can ask a quick question. So what's
Sure,
the difference
please.
between this reserve and the reserves, the 20 million or so reserves we have as part of our budget? So this just sits, this is something sitting there, or all in investments and can be liquidated immediately? Or
Yeah, so the city maintains a lot of funds, right? I mean, there's money in the bank, there's money that we have with just in the regular investment pool. There's money that we have with LAIF. So there's a lot of different places for the money to sit. And this is, so the money that we have in reserves, that 36%, that's a portion of the funds, which if I recall is a little over 18 million, 18.1 million or something, that is specifically set aside as basically untouchable, except for, in the case of some catastrophic loss. And so we keep that money set aside for very emergency potential uses.
Kelly?
Yes.
I'm just going to interject here a little bit. I think Sabina's question may have been related to what are the pieces of all those 70 million? And that includes things like the beautification fund, the park development fund, the transportation, the TIF, whatever that is. We've got 10 or 20 individual pieces. In total, they add up to 70 or 80 million at any given time. And only 18 million of it is the general fund reserve.
okay, got it.
The rest of it's a lot of just, what have you got? 30 or 40 different funds, Kelly? Something like that.
Yeah, there's like 50 funds, but
some of them have reserves and some of them don't.
Right. And thank you for clarifying that. That's your
GAD
is spot on.
GAD's got 10 million, so
Okay, now it makes sense.
okay, the GAD and the, gosh, God bless the finance department and trying to keep it all straight, but yeah, there are just a bazillion little funds. Some of them only have $5,000 or $10,000 in them, and some of them have $10 million in them. And we have money that actually doesn't even belong to us. Sometimes we've been holding money in kind of an escrow account for or a trust account for other agencies.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you again, Vice Chair Perkins. That was very helpful. So all of those funds, again, are managed professionally and invested in various places per that investment policy that we just reviewed. So in order to keep that process, to safeguard that process and be prepared for the end of the contract, a request for proposals was issued on January the 29th with a proposal deadline to respond by March 11th. And proposals were going to be evaluated and scored in 6 key areas: general qualifications, relevant experience, proposed staffing, pricing, proposed approach and responsiveness. And then after that review process, top candidates would be invited to interview, and we would conduct reference checks. Next slide. So staff received 6 responses before the deadline. We went through a process where finance staff reviewed each of the proposals independently of one another, and then we got back together to compare what our results were. The top 2 ranked firms were identified and invited to interview, and that was FHN Financial Main Street Advisors, the city's current financial advisor, as well as Meter Investment Management, a firm out of Ohio. To be honest, staff felt that either one of these firms would do an absolutely excellent job, and both proposals were very solid, and both of these proposals were fortunately the lowest price proposals of all 6. Because of the fact that we've had FHM Financial for the last 5 years, their understanding of the city's approach and their pricing arrangement, we felt comfortable with continuing to contract with FHN Financial to provide our investment advisory services. Next slide. Fiscal implications. So currently, the 5-year contract was at $24,000 per year, all inclusive. So that includes anything, if there were travel costs or whatever, for this firm to come out and work with the city or participate in a meeting, that would be included in the annual cost. The new 5-year proposal is for $30,000 per year. It does not increase. Also, it is all inclusive, and there is sufficient funding in the current operating budget to cover the new contract. So next slide, please. The next steps would be to publish notice of vendor selection as FHN Financial Main Street Advisors. And then again, staff would request that you forward this proposed selection to City Council for consideration of a 5-year agreement by resolution. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
I just wanted to say that I've been very pleased with the reporting that we receive from FHN, and I'm glad they were still competitive on price. I'm still amazed that $30,000 covers it, but you know, that's fine by me. I'm not going to complain. You know, $2,500 a month is, I thought, a very reasonable cost for the services they provide, and grateful to have them back.
I would add to that, Vice Chair Perkins, that one of the proposals came in at 3 times that amount.
Really?
2 others were about double that amount. So the cost, it is very cost competitive, and they do a good job, so that we saw no reason to change.
I particularly like it's a pretty fat document, and quite honestly, I don't read every single line of every single bond we own, but the national and trends section in the back, I find very interesting to read about. There are some, Switzerland still has negative interest rates, which I still have trouble wrapping my mind around negative interest rates, but that means you pay them to hold your money. And just be grateful, I guess we aren't in Switzerland. Well,
Yes.
it's a really nice place to be.
Kelly, where is FHN based out of?
They are based out of Las Vegas.
That's how they keep it low.
Did we get any local bids that were as qualified, or were they
Yes,
were
we
just too
did.
expensive?
I want to say we got, let's see. I think the one local bid was Chandler Asset Management. If I recall, they're out of Southern California. And then the one that the other one we were considering was out of Ohio. They also had a satellite office in Long Beach. The other areas were Houston was in there, and one was kind of East Coast. And there may have been two actually from California.
Okay, so
Yeah.
nobody from the Bay Area or San Ramon itself.
No.
All right, well, I think, they know the city well, they've done a good job, so, and they're giving us competitive pricing, so.
I recommend that we submit this to the full council for approval.
Let's do it. All right. Item number 3, future finance committee meetings, dates and times, discussion item by Kelly Sessions. Once again.
I guess it's the Kelly show today, but I apologize for that. I have others that on the team that could do a better job than I, but wanted to spend just a little bit of time. I know Chair Zafar mentioned that the 4 p.m. start time was difficult with work responsibilities. And so we had a 5 p.m. start time today. We have a meeting scheduled for June the 7th. It is currently listed at 4 p.m. as well. So we wanted to see if it would make sense to change that time to 5 p.m. going forward, and just to take some of your input on that.
Let me just say that I want to accommodate Sabina's schedule, work schedule. Work schedules are very important. They're important to me as well. I would like to retain the meeting on the Monday before a council meeting, either the first council meeting of the month or the second council meeting of the month. That helps me in some of my planning, and I work 3 days a week at Livermore Lab, and I'm retired, but I'm not good at it. I work 3 days a week, but so anytime on the Monday before a council meeting would work with me, and we'll find a way to meet Sabina's needs as well.
I appreciate it. And yeah, it's somehow this year, generally I work on East Coast times because most of my folks that I work with are on the East Coast. So after 2 generally works for me, but somehow with my customer now, Mondays specifically have been aligning with some work related meetings. So 5 p.m. totally works for me if we want to keep the same Monday, but move it from 4 to 5 p.m. if it works with everybody else's schedule.
I'm okay.
It looks like I see some thumbs up and shaking heads from staff. So Mondays at 5, Mondays before a council meeting at 5 p.m.
Okay.
Works for me.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that's it. The next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for June 7, 2021, I believe 5 p.m. based on our discussion. I will see you all then.
Bye.
Thank you.